This is Wayne Cooper, and it's July the 10th, 2014. I'm interviewing a longtime resident of Huntsville. Please give us your name and your maiden name, the year you were born, and where.
I was born in Matthiasville on December the 14th, 1914.
And your maiden name and your full name.
I was Viola Jane Coker, C-O-K-E-R, and I was the oldest of 14 brothers. And then I had a sister, and then another brother.
Tell me about your earliest memories at your parents' home, including your parents and something about your siblings.
My oldest memory is we lived down at the West End, across from, way down at the West End. There was a mill down there, number 2 mill. We lived way down there, and we had to walk to school. We walked to public school in Huntsville every day, and sometimes I used to go home for my lunch at noon. We weren't supposed to, but I quite often did. We walk down and walk back. And
At school, who were some of your classmates, and do you have any memorable teachers?
the one person that we started school together, her name was Nora Law, and her and I were the best of friends. And money was very hard to come by. And when we'd get a nickel between us, and we'd go into Parker's Bake Shop, it was across from the post office, and buy a butter tart and divide it in half. And then she used to always take her finger and take all of the stuff out of that and then eat the crust. I always ate the crust first and then ate the good stuff after. I can remember that just like it was yesterday. And Nora became a lawyer. She was a famous lawyer in Toronto, but I think she died quite some time ago.
Are there any teachers, maybe principal, that you remember?
Oh, I remember all my teachers and the principal, and I can remember, what was his name? And he had an impairment in his speech, and sometimes the kids would laugh, and he would just get furious. I was always scared to death of him. And I can remember each one of us had to pick some kind of a subject and then get up and give a speech on it. We had no notes or anything. And mine was how peanuts grew. Do you know how peanuts grow?
A little bit, but I'd probably need your speech to help me out. Did you get an opportunity to go to high school?
Yes, I did. When school started, I went to high school the first day, and the kids, the Sullivans and all of them that lived all down near the tannery, were all dressed to the hilt. Now I had a new dress, and it cost $1.49. I can remember that dress. I have that dress yet in my closet. And I had a pair of somebody else's shoes. I didn't have new shoes of mine. They were somebody else's shoes. So I went the first day, and when the teacher gave us the list of books, she wanted one of these huge dictionaries. Well, they were, at that point, I said nearly $100 for a dictionary. The great big thick dictionary. Well, I knew my dad couldn't afford it because I'm the oldest, and there's all these kids. Every 2 years there's another baby. So I said, well, so when I went home, I said to my dad, I am not going to high school. And you remember Dr. Rogers, the dentist? Well, she was a school teacher, and she used to come in and teach us if our teacher was away. And Nora Law and I, we were best friends, and she sat here and I'm here, and we acted up. So she kept us at noon, and we knew we were in trouble. So she called us up to the front when the kids were all gone, and she said, now, would you two girls go down to the drugstore and get me a parcel? Well, we went down to the drugstore. We ran all the way as hard as we could run. The parcel was ready. We grabbed the parcel, ran all the way back. And she said, but you didn't get my parcel? We said, yes, we did. She said, you didn't have time. Well, we said we ran all the way. So after that, she was the best teacher in the world. I could remember that so well.
You had a very major role in community life. I can recall many things that you did, and I'd like you to talk about some of the things that you did within the community, even up to the last few years. What organizations you were part of, service groups, etc., and what kinds of things you did in the community.
What kind of things I did? Oh my goodness. Such as what?
Well, I do remember you as a member of a group, a musical group, that went around to the various nursing homes in town and played music.
Oh yes, we did that.
Your brother was part of that group, and there were other people. I think Bill Earl was sort
yes.
of the unofficial leader.
Bill Earl, it was his group.
Yeah.
That we went, and we went out to Rogers Cove. We used to go out there, I think once every 2 weeks, and we went over to Chartwell?
Mm-hmm.
We were over at Chartwell different times, and I don't know how many times we were there. And but we used to have a great time, and we like to go out to Rogers Cove.
Mm-hmm.
Rogers Cove, and I haven't been out there for a while now, but I used to go nearly every week. I was out there, and but we loved going, and everybody, when we'd come in, they were just so happy to see you, and so many people that I had known, and I'd go over there and they were there, and I couldn't believe it because they were younger than I am. And somebody that's there that you would know was the minister's wife from Anglican Church.
Mm-hmm.
You know who I mean?
Yes, Reverend Sutherland, I think.
Art?
Sutherland? Reverend? Sutherland.
Her.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we're going over, she's right out there. The minute I get in the door, she about strangles me.
With a hug, of course.
Yeah.
That's cute. You probably attended church, and religion may have played a role in your life. Could you tell us about
that?
We
were kids. We all went to the Salvation Army. My dad was captain of the Salvation Army at one time, and my grandpa Coker lived in Toronto, and he played the trumpet in the Salvation Army band, in the first Salvation Army band in Toronto. And I had a picture, I gave it to my daughter, but it's a big long picture like this, about this wide, of the band, and my grandpa's in it.
Uh-huh.
And Dad played the organ, and they went to Free Methodist Church. They started going to Free Methodist Church. Now the Free Methodist Church, is that
It's still recording. Yep.
they didn't believe in music. They sang, and Mrs. Payne used to lead the music,
Mm-hmm.
and she was way up here. Well, nobody could keep up with her. And then my mother went for a long time, and then my dad started to go, and and he played the organ. So he gave them the organ, and my dad played the organ. My dad could sing very nicely. My mother couldn't carry a note in a bushel basket.
Seems to me that music was part of your family life, though. I remember your brother playing the accordion.
Oh yes, and Art played the accordion, and he played the trumpet. Bev, my oldest son, has a lot of medals that he won from playing the trumpet. And he doesn't play it anymore. Once you lose your teeth, you've had it, because when you push on the trumpet, your teeth fall out. And I played the trumpet for a long time until my teeth, then I couldn't, because when you push it against your teeth, they're gone.
Gotcha. So is that when you started to play the spoons?
And then I played the spoons. And I used to play the spoons with Bill Earl over at the, when we went to both places there, and out the highway.
Mm-hmm. I think you went to Fairburn as well, didn't you?
We went to Fairburn a few times,
Mm-hmm.
and but out the highway,
Yeah, Muskoka Landing.
Muskoka Landing, Rogers Cove,
Right.
those are the places that we used to play all the time.
What special occasions would you name as being highlights in your life?
In my life?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess when I was married. Well, when I was a teenager, my mother, I can remember, I was just thinking about, I woke up the other morning thinking about it. My mother used to sew. Now, she was not a very good seamstress, but she could make me a blouse that I just loved. And so she taught me how to sew when I was very young. So I got so that I could sew really, really well. And so I used to put a lot of things in at the fair. And I made a little, and so one time they had a child's dress made from a man's shirt. So Alvin had a shirt that, somebody had given it to me, and it was a silk shirt, yeah, kind of a creamy color. So I made this dress, and I smocked it all across here, and I made little panties to go with it to match, and I made little hats. And so I took it over, and when I was on the fair, at that time I was on the executive, and when I went over, here is this up on way up here like this, and it says, "This is not handmade." And it's beautiful, but it is not handmade. I was just furious. So I went, Jack Laycock was head of it, remember Jack? So I went over to him, and I said, "Look, this dress is there, that pink dress," and I said, "that is a man's silk shirt. I dyed it," and he said, "I believe you." But I said, "I'm going home," and of course at that time, the time before, I had dyed one yellow, but I'd made the dress and then dyed it. This time I had dyed the shirt. So I went home and I got the sleeve and the neck of the shirt and brought it back. And I got the special first prize on that.
Did you work outside the home at any point? And if so, where?
I worked at Sears. I worked at Sears for 24 years, and the last 12 years I was manager of Sears.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I had it in the back of my mind that you did work in a store, and I just couldn't remember which one.
But I really, and I like that job. I really, really did like that job.
You want to talk about that a bit more?
Pardon?
You want to talk about that job a bit more?
Well, the only thing is, the one thing that I can remember so well, and I was, sometimes I wake up in the night and think about it. The gal that was the manager was a really stout girl. And she had been manager for quite some time. And the gal that, no, she was assistant manager, and the manager, her husband died and she was away, so she took her place, so then I took her place. And while we were there, the head man from Toronto came in. I had never met him before, and so he came in and I went to wait on him, and he wanted to know who I was, and I told him. And he said he was looking for this person. So I said, well, she's here, and I called her out. And so he said, well, you come with me. He said, I'm going down to the restaurant. So she went with him and came back and gathered up her stuff, and he took her home. And here she'd been stealing stuff all the time. Stealing stuff all the time. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Well, I knew, I said I didn't believe it. I did because I'd seen her taking things, but who was I to say, you don't go and talk about anybody? I never ever told anybody.
Until now.
Pardon?
Until now.
Yeah. But they're long gone anyway. They're all gone.
Yeah, and you didn't name names, so that's okay. Are there any historical moments from world history, Canadian history, that remain with you?
In my history?
Mm-hmm.
Boy.
Okay, let's start with World War II, the ending of World War II.
World War II. I can remember what I remember about World War II. Bev, remember Bev, had a little pony. Do you remember that little pony? Well, he had a little pony, and he saw this pony, and he wanted to buy it. Well, we didn't want a pony. Where would you put it? But anyway, they wanted $17 for it. We didn't have $17. So he came home and he said, Mom, he says I can have it for 10. So $10 he went, brought home the pony. And that pony was the best thing that ever happened, because he just loved it, and he took care of it like you wouldn't believe, like more than people look after their kids. And I remember he went down, he was going downtown one day, and oh God, I can't think of his name now. He lived up at the top of the hill, down below where we lived. And he came out, and he took the pony away from Bev, and put his granddaughter on it, and walked her up and down all morning. And he wouldn't let him have the pony back. So anyway, so he went down one day with the pony, and he had to take this little girl. and everybody was coming out giving him money. And when he came home, he said, "I have this money." So he hauls this money out of his pocket, and I guess he had $7, which was a lot of money. And people had been coming out, and they'd take her off, put their little kid on it, walk him up and down the street a few times and give him some money. So after that, that's what he did. He'd take the pony down, and on Main Street, you know, the post office is here, and on the corner here, up on this corner, oh, I can't think of the name, but they had a little boy who was crippled. Isn't that funny? His name's gone right out of my head. And he was crippled. He couldn't go anywhere. And he used to sit at the window and look. And Bev came up one time, and there was no place for the pony. And he tied him out right outside the door where this little boy was. Well, he was so excited. So after that, every time he'd go downtown, he'd go right there and tie the pony up, and he'd come to the door and he'd say, "You watch that nobody touches him."
That's cute.
And oh, that little guy, he lived for, no, I don't know how old he was, maybe 10 or 12, and he was gone. But oh, he just loved that pony. And Bev would take him out. He'd bring the pony right to the door so he could pet it.
It's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
You told me also earlier that that pony was and Bev were in the parade marking the end of World War II. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, Bev was on his pony, and he had this big sign, and he had made it because from the time he was 3 years old, he used to draw pictures, and you knew exactly what they were. And one time, I'll tell you this, one time, we were going out, and he was being bad, and his dad spanked him. When we came home, here's this great big picture hanging right in front of the door when you open the door, and with his dad spanking him, and I forget what it was that said on it. It was some stupid. So, but he just loved that pony, and he'd do anything for it.
You said he made a sign for the horse in the parade. What did the sign say?
The sign said, "This is the end of the rising sun." Great big sign like this, fastened right to his tail. "This is the end of the rising sun."
He was a clever son, wasn't he? Do you have any favorite memories of life in Huntsville that just sort of flash before you now and again?
I can remember, one thing I can remember was at school. I think I was in grade 3, if I'm not mistaken. I've never ever forgotten this. Oh no, what was his name? He was a new principal, and he had a bad hand. He was born with, I think it was a finger coming out of here, and a thumb, and 2 were off. It was a funny hand anyway. And this is something I've never ever forgotten. School went in, and then we all had to march out into the hall in front of our, like when you went in the big doors, there was a room here, a room there, one there, and over here, and then over here. And every kid in the school, in the public school, were in the hall. And this man got up on there was a table, and he had a chair on the table, and he got up on the chair so that everybody could see, and he held up his hand. I've never ever forgotten that. And he showed everybody what his hand looked like. And he said, now when I was a baby, I was born with my hand like this. But he said, I can do almost anything with this hand because I practiced. And you can do the same if you have anything the matter with you. I've never, ever, ever forgotten that.
It was a lifelong lesson.
Oh, yeah. I really wanted to go to high school, and I went the first day and got a list of books. And one thing we had to have was this huge dictionary, and it seemed to me it was $100. Anyway, I knew that my dad could not afford to buy me hardly any of those books. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to school. I'm quitting right now. So when I went home, and so I said to my dad, I am not going to high school. And he said, oh yes you are. And I said, Dad, I am not going to high school. I said, all the kids have all these clothes and everything. And I said, and we don't have them. And the kids made fun of you because they used to make fun of us at public school. So I said, I am not going to school. Well, remember Dr. Rogers, the dentist? Well, she was a school teacher. And when our teacher was away, we'd have her. And Nora Law sat here, and I'm here. We're little buggers. So this day, we're yep, 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 yep. So she says, Viola and Nora, you stay in at recess. So we knew we were in for it. So anyway, after all the kids went out, she came over and she said, now would you girls do something for me? She said, there's a parcel down at the drugstore, and I'd like you to go down and get it for me. Well, that was a shock. So we said, sure, we'd go. Well, I'm telling you, we ran from the school as hard as we could run. The parcel was ready, we grabbed it, and we ran all the way back. And we were back. She said, I thought I sent you for my parcel. Well, we got it. She said, you couldn't have got it. You weren't gone long. After that, she was the best teacher in the world. I've never ever forgotten that.
It's a wonderful memory. Vi, I'd like you to give us your full, your married name.
McQuain, M-C-Q-U-A-I-N. I married Alvin McQuain.
Well, thank you very, very much, Vi. I think that we can conclude the interview now. I think we've done it all in one fell swoop.